So what really happens when an entire country's economy is run by the state? Well, back in 2016, two American economics professors decided to go to Cuba to find out for themselves. They weren't just tourists, you know? They were there to see how socialism actually works, or maybe doesn't work, on the ground. And what they found? It was pretty staggering. I mean, just imagine for a second if every single store, every hotel, every service you used was run like the DMV. That's the wild question the authors used to frame their whole experience in Cuba. And honestly, it perfectly captures the day-to-day reality they were about to uncover. So our guides for this, Professors Bob and Ben, they weren't there for the sunny beach resorts. Nope. Their whole mission was to actually live inside Cuba's state-run system. And right away, within their first 48 hours, they saw this deep, fundamental split in the Cuban economy. And really, the heart of everything they observed comes down to this one stark contrast: the huge, massive gap between the quality of state-run services and the incredible ingenuity of private businesses. Their first taste of this came from where they stayed. So for $60, the state-owned Hotel Triton gave them moldy bathrooms and broken elevators, with absolutely no guarantee of running water. But the very next night, get this, they paid less, just $57 for a privately owned apartment, a casa particular. It was spotless, it was comfortable, and it had reliable hot water. I mean, better service for a lower price. And this wasn't just a one-off thing. The state-run stores had these bizarre product mixes, like you'd see plumbing parts right next to dresses, and basically zero choice. A state-run quote-unquote Italian restaurant served them what they could only describe as inedible greasy white goo. But then they'd go to a private restaurant and find a modern kitchen, a full bar, and this incredible meal of fresh lobster and shrimp. It was literally like stepping into a different country. Take a look at this. The authors actually took this photo inside a state-run store. Just notice the shelves. There's no variety, no competition, nothing. This is what a lack of economic choice really looks like. And this brings us right back to their big takeaway. Adopting a socialist system is like turning your whole economy into a giant department of motor vehicles. It just perfectly sums up their whole experience, a system that seemed to be missing any kind of efficiency, customer focus, or any real reason to get better. So why? Why was the state-run hotel literally rotting away while the private apartment was pristine? Well, the authors argue it's not random at all. It's actually the predictable results of a few core economic principles at work. The authors point to this idea called the price problem. It comes from an economist named Ludwig von Mises, and the basic idea is this: in a system without private ownership and competition, you don't have real prices. And if you don't have prices, the planners have no clue, no accurate signals telling them what people actually want or the best way to make it. And this really boils down to three main problems. First, without real prices, the planners are just guessing what people need. Second, there are no incentives. I mean, why would you work harder at the Hotel Triton if you get paid the same no matter what? And finally, there's no private ownership. When no single person is responsible for the hotel, nobody has a real reason to take care of it. It belongs to everyone, which in effect means it belongs to no one. And this is where it gets really fascinating. You can see how the authors trace these exact same problems, the lack of prices, incentives, and ownership, as they ripple out across all of Cuban society. And it leads to some truly bizarre situations. Okay, let's talk about cars. For decades, the Cuban government put heavy restrictions on imports. The result? One of the most twisted and frankly shocking markets the authors had ever seen. $30,000. Now, what do you think that gets you in Cuba? A brand new car? Maybe a luxury sedan? Not even close. That $30,000 is the selling price for a beat-up 25-year-old Peugeot. Because the supply is so incredibly restricted, prices have just gone through the roof. The authors did the math, and relative to what people earn there, this is like an American paying over $250,000 for an old used car. It's just mind-boggling. This weird economic logic even affects something Cuba is famous for, its health statistics. On paper, they look fantastic. But the authors argue these numbers are kind of a side effect of the system. For example, since there are so few cars, there are fewer traffic deaths, which artificially bumps up the life expectancy stats. And more controversially, they cite reports that the low infant mortality rate is partly maintained by one of the world's highest abortion rates, with claims that doctors pressure women in high-risk pregnancies to terminate, all to protect those official statistics. Where are all the boats? That's a question the authors kept asking themselves. For a huge island nation, the coast was just quiet. Eerily quiet. No fishing boats, no sailboats, no ferries. It was like this perfect visual symbol of an economy missing that normal hum of business and life. So, all of this leads to the author's really powerful final thought, where they compare their experience in Cuba with a visit to another Cuban community just 90 miles away. A few months later, they visited Little Havana in Miami. And wow, the contrast was just overwhelming. The quiet streets of Cuba were replaced by this explosion of color, signs, and energy. The bland, limited food gave way to restaurants with 6-page menus, offering more variety in one single place than they'd seen in their entire trip to Cuba. And the food was incredible, so flavorful, made with fresh, quality ingredients. And that's really the author's ultimate takeaway. It wasn't about the people, it was about the system. You have the same culture, the same people, producing totally different results based on the economic framework they live in. Maybe the most powerful moment of their entire trip had nothing to do with economics. A university student in Havana told them he was glad Americans were coming. Not for their money, but because, as he said, you bring us more freedom. It's just a stunning final thought. Beyond supply and demand, beyond prices and incentives, what is the ultimate human cost of any economic system?